We're back, people, and today we're breaking down film on Patrick Paul, Miami Dolphins left tackle, who got his first start in the NFL, rookie. It was a very up and down performance. Like, you got to see like his strengths and weaknesses on display. If you've been, following the channel, or you knew from pre-draft, I wasn't the biggest Patrick Paul fan. He definitely showed off the struggle with his technique, and I think just being in the right spot at certain times in this game, which has been trouble for him in college. But you could also see the clear physical capabilities that he has with athleticism, and then like recovery ability, getting in the right spot in the run game at times, just with that pure athleticism, and doing that at his size is super impressive. So it was like a mixed bag performance. I think it was kind of what most people would expect in his first action. Now, is it still the pick that I would have made? No, I never would have made that pick personally, but like you can see why that pick was made, just due to the upside with Paul. So it wasn't like completely horrible game. I would still, like, if I had to grade it, would be like below average, but I think that was like pretty expected from Paul. He gave up a sack when he got isolated in pass protection. That's why the Dolphins usually try to keep it pretty basic with their stuff, and they don't give a lot of true pass sets. His sack technically wasn't like a true pass set. We'll break that down. This was one of his biggest blunders of the day, though. If you watch Paul, they run the jet sweep. This is the 4th and 1 play. This actually should, I know a lot of people had problems with the play call, but this should have worked. It's just, look how everyone gets off the ball here. Everyone fires off to the left. Paul is late to get off the ball. I understand he has to let this edge come in free and shoot downhill, but Paul has to be able to get off and take a much better angle to get to this linebacker. He has to know, like, this guy's going to, with the play call, this linebacker is going to fly off to the outside and read that. Paul is just not able to get hands on him, and if he gets hands on him, Paul just has, Tyreek would just have one-on-one with his safety, and he would have picked up the first down easily if Paul was able to get any hands on the linebacker, and potentially a lot more if he made that safety miss. So this play is just on him being late to recognize it, and then just not understanding exactly where he needs to be, and then the linebacker just beating him to the point of attack. It is like a tough ask for him to make that block, but he has to be able to at least get hands on in that situation, because to me that play call actually should have worked pretty effectively if Paul was able to be in the right position. Here we get to see the Dolphins using like a full slide protection play action. They love to do this stuff. It makes life a lot easier on your offensive linemen. With their one-on-ones, he's able to get hands on very quickly, and then he gets slightly out of position, but you can see his ability to recover, get his hips back across with his feet. Better job with his base here. Like, once he's here, does a good job shuffling, keeping a nice base, bending in that lower half, then anchoring, just getting back in a nice little position there. So overall, I think when he got like in these positions where they were able to slide and get engaged early, and he wasn't super isolated on the edge, he actually did a good job. Paul, this was like the one sack he gave up. This is where they super, like, it's not a true pass set because they're sliding everyone to the right here, and he just gets one-on-one on the backside. So it's not like a true one-on-one pass set. Like, he's not getting back, getting in a 45 or a vertical set. He's like jump setting, getting into this guy quickly. But since he gets so isolated, he gets over the top there, bending at the waist. Like, that's a problem that he'll have. He bends at the waist. His hands placement isn't good. He's too wide. Now the guy just works past him very easily. Just poor technique overall here from Paul. These were the problems that you would see on tape in college at Houston, and it shows up here. The one time he really got truly isolated in pass protection, and then Huntley gets sacked. So those were like the 4th down play that I showed earlier and this play were definitely his biggest blunders of the night. Not super surprising, but just got to show that off, and something that he definitely needs to improve on. I think obviously getting Armstead back is a big plus, but it was still nice to see Paul in action because there was some good things to take away here. Getting a one-on-one. This is a true pass set one-on-one. I like how he gets out of his stance. He looks explosive out of his stance in these true pass sets. When he's like, vertical setting or 45-degree set. I think his footwork can be a little bit better. Like, right there, he can put himself in a little bit better position, bending at the knees, I think. Like, he's very straight on that outside foot. But he's able to, guy gives him a little move to the inside, a little move to the outside. He gets a little overextended, but he's able to just show off that athleticism to just push that pass rusher past the arc there. Tough to beat around the edge. I think Paul, when he does lose in pass protection on these situations, he's usually losing to the inside. But when they try to work outside of him, he does a great job with his athleticism and length to just keep this guy pushing past the arc. He brings his feet with him, and then Huntley actually ends up escaping up the middle for like 20 yards. It happened actually a couple times where Paul did that. Here's another true pass at one-on-one where he actually true pass at one-on-one, and they super isolate him with a lot of space to work with. Explosive out of his stance, light on his feet here. I like this. He's bending at the knees a little bit more. His left foot's not super straight and out of position. He's in a good spot. Guy tries to work to the inside with all that space, and Paul is able to hit him with that inside hand, stab, slow him down. Maybe he gets a little grabby, but able to bring his shoulder back into him so he doesn't hook him too hard there to get a holding call. So Paul had a few of these situations where he like maybe looked like he might have hooked someone, get a holding, but it didn't get called. So I actually think that's a good sign, because he always like had a problem getting his hands a little bit too wide. So those could lead to holding calls in the future. But I think it's always a decent sign when you can have these plays where like it's pretty 50-50 being called. Here I don't think it will be called because he starts to hook him there, but his backside's not really like holding him and turning that guy. That's when they're going to start calling them. But Paul is able to just get his body back in front of that. So just like good recovery in these situations. You can see the athleticism and just physical skills that he has on display. And it's actually interesting that they're actually feeling comfortable enough to leave him isolated. And this is a play that should have been a touchdown to Tyreek Hill, but Huntley missed him down the sideline. So it's nice to see that, Paul not getting the holding calls in those situations. Then in the running game, I thought for the most part he did a good job when he was just straight up blocking defensive ends. Obviously that play versus the linebacker wasn't great, but here on the backside of an outside zone, I think he does a great job cutting off 94, who's playing, head up as a 4 technique. Gets across from him. He's straining to work there. Get your hips across once you've, done a good job. I think his hand placement's good there. Obviously, it's just not blocked up perfectly on this side, but I thought Paul overall did a decent enough job when he was getting hands on guys, giving some decent reps out there. I think he did a better job aggressive setting when he had a little bit of help to his side. It wasn't like so much space, because like this time, the left guard is like close inside, so he has help in case this guy works in there. That he can get engaged and play with much more technique. The other one was just a situation where he was so isolated in pass protection, like he was going to lose with bad technique. But here it gives him a much better chance. He's bending at the knees too. Like once he gets engaged here, like he gets engaged very quickly. He's bending at the knees. He gets his like chest, torso area much straighter, not leaning over the top. Just better technique. His hands are pretty solid here. They're a little too wide, but for him, I think that's pretty good. And now he's able to just play with good base, ride these people outside. Just really, really quality, decent job there from Paul. Definitely much more comfortable, I think, in those scenarios in pass protection. And then here's just a better example later in the game of him climbing to the second level. Boom, throw that backside hand, that drag hand to help Jones cut off his guy. This doesn't get run anywhere because everyone else is getting blocked, but Paul does a great job on this rep. Getting to the second level, Jones just gets absolutely bullied. But Patrick Paul gets to the second level, cuts off that second level defender very easily. I thought got engaged pretty nicely. Did a good job with the lower half, like base and stuff, shuffling his feet. He's just in a very good position, so if it does get blocked up better up front, Paul is in a great position downfield. That's a much better rep than the other one where he has to get to a second level defender. This is another one where Paul potentially got called for a hold, losing to the inside. Like he kind of just struggles with guys who play with lower leverage and hit him with these inside counters. Sometimes he oversets, takes some false steps in pass protection. I like that he used an independent hand here, which is nice. He shoots that hand inside. Usually he would be a two-hand guy. I like being able to use independent hands. That's important. He doesn't do it very effectively, but at least he's showing it, which is a nice thing. Loses to the inside here. He's able to recover because he kind of hooks him here and holds him, but he didn't get called. He hooks him just enough and washes him down just enough to where it wasn't super obvious. Like 49's begging for it. So it wasn't a perfect play. Like he gives up a pressure. This is a rep that he would be considered a loss. But I'm glad that he at least didn't get called for a holding there. And then here's another rep where they ran that QB draw, where you want this guy to get to the outside of you. Paul does a good job, maintaining an inside relationship, but you want to play half man inside. You want this guy to go to the outside of you. I think Paul understands that. He starts to open up his hips to the outside, force this guy on the outside path, and Paul just works him past the arc, which he is much more comfortable facing edge defenders that like to win around the edge of him to the outside, because he can use his athleticism and length more to his advantage, and the technical problems, I think, show up less in those situations for Paul. And you can see here, this is a play where you just see athleticism. He needs to work on his angles, and then once he gets to the point of attack, engaging. But you can see him, just like him moving in space is pretty impressive for a guy of his size. Once he gets here, it'd be like better for him to, maintain that block. But it's just the ups and downs, the strengths and weaknesses that Paul kind of shows on a consistent basis. Here they try to win to the inside again. He gets a little, over the top. Lots of room created to the inside here because Jones' first step is to the inside. So Paul has to make up for it. He used that inside hand to stop him. I think he does a much better job this time staying square, bringing his body back across, not allowing him to completely get opened up to the inside, and really slow that down, at least throw down into the flat that time for that to be picked up. Here he picks up a stunt, which was a pretty nice rep pass protection. They try to work that stunt. The outside guy is the crash guy down. He gets engaged. Once he's able to pass it off to Robert Jones, he feels this guy looping around. So showing off some processing ability, good instincts, awareness in these situations. That's always important for an offensive lineman. I really just think his biggest problem is technique. Obviously, like, awareness, instincts isn't like the highest trait for him, but I think when it comes down to stunts, like, he seems like a fairly smart guy, football player when he's talking. Definitely a guy that seems eager to learn. So I do think, I don't know if he'll ever reach his ceiling, but I do think he's a guy that seems like he's willing to work to get higher up there from Paul. I also think, on the backside of these runs, he's a great kick out guy. Like, he's going to, if he has the leverage advantage on edge defenders and he has to be the guy that just sort of like hinges here, kicks this out, like, he does a very, very good job holding that. Like, he's holding that block so well, it's off the screen if things were better blocked in other situations. So overall, not the greatest day from Paul, but I think it's kind of what you expect out of rookie debut from a guy that had those types of problems in college. We'll see if it ever improves. Personally, it still isn't the pick I would have made, but there are things that you can take away and think, potentially develop it down the line. It is interesting they went with him over Lamb, especially, like, I think Lamb, they want to be more of like, they'll throw him in the middle of the game type guy, and if it's Paul, he can start at left tackle. So it was interesting to see him. I don't think he was like a huge liability or anything, like, at least compared to the rest of the line, but hopefully that can improve down the line. I think that's going to be more of a year 2 to 3 type thing for Paul. So if you guys are doing much for like, comment, subscribe,